Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. In my delivery tonight on the motion raised by the Honorable Member Patterson, I would ask the Honorable Member, since it's his motion, that he stay for the entire response from our side. He usually have a trait, Mr. Speaker, of speaking and then doing a Houdini on us. He usually abscond because he doesn't want to hear the response. So here is the response. The first thing that I would say is that the Honorable Member was the Minister of Public Infrastructure. And in his 5 years, left the very company that he spoke of GPL, on its knees. $13.1 billion every single government agency or GPL. They were bankrupt, Mr. Speaker. Bankrupt. Mr. Speaker, that is why we have had to put billions of dollars since we came back into government into GPL to deal with the hole that Mr. Patterson, the Honorable Member, left the GPL. The first thing. The second thing is that he spoke of capacity at GPL, generating capacity. Mr. Speaker, I'm at your mercy here. They were quarreling just now when my colleague was speaking when their boy was on the floor. But listen, it hurts. It hurts, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he spoke about capacity. For 5 long years, the APNU and AFC government did not invest in anything to build that capacity. It was zero until the end of their life in government. They go and spend $50 million US to buy the 5 Wartsel engines. Let me tell you what is happening with the 5 Wartsel engine that Mr. Patterson spoke of just now. The 5 that he gave us new. As you give us new.
Honorable Member, Mr. Patterson.
The Honorable Member Patterson. Good. So right now, those 5 engines are down. Nobody troubled them. It was the same person that they awarded the contract, had an EPC contract to construct and build out and commission. Every turn of that project that Mr. Patterson, the Honorable Member, left had issues, including the engines that were supplied. We have to every day labor behind that project, Mr. Speaker, to get it up. We are now faced with it, and it's been down for 5 or 6 days. But we're going to get it up, Honorable Member, and we'll get it working as it should. That project that the Honorable Member said, build capacity, still yet to deliver to the Guyanese people. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Patterson, the Honorable Member, spoke of a number of things around power and power generation. I doubt that when he was Minister of Public Infrastructure, that he had the care and concern for the people of Guyana when he was leaving GPL in a place where it's on bended knees. Bended knees. When we came into government, GPL was on bended knees. Do you know, any one of y'all on the opposition side, do you know what is to have 1/3 of your annual income in receivables? Do you know for anyone over there to have 1/3 of their salary owed to them? That was the situation that the Honorable Member left GPL in. Mr. Speaker, they were just complaining about their delivery and being interrupted. But again, hear that. Mr. Speaker, I want to speak to Mr. Patterson's comments on the gas to shore. He spoke, Mr. Patterson spoke of studies. He spoke of studies, Mr. Speaker. They raised the issue of the gas to energy project in the budget. Made a whole hullabaloo about the project in the budget that they presented. He did not do anything to move the process forward. Not a single thing that he has done to move the process forward. He said that they were the first one to commission a study. The Japanese company Kyoto Corporation did something called an oil and gas master plan in 2018. I am saying to you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Patterson, they did nothing, the honorable member did nothing about that project. So to come here and to say, speak about on behalf of the Guyanese people and asking about the gas, the energy project that our government is doing something about to deliver to the people is nothing less than hypocrisy, if I can use such a word in this house. I will say to you, Mr. Speaker, that Mr. Patterson said that he's putting Exxon on notice. That is his exact word. He's putting Exxon on notice that they're bringing a dangerous substance to shore. Now, as the so-called, I think Mr. Patterson is the shadow minister of natural resources, the honorable member. Well, if you understand gas and how gas is converted into energy, if you look throughout the globe, it has been done. What dangerous gas the member spoke about? It is a manageable gas. Many countries across this globe have natural gas powering massive amounts of industrialization. So I do not understand the put on notice that he's putting the oil operator on about bringing a dangerous gas on shore. Mr. Patterson talk about, the honorable member talk about transmission and the amount of demand that the amount of demand in the country to take off the amount of capacity we're putting in. Mr. Speaker, the thing is, GPL in their modeling and forecasting for demand for the next 5 years put us at around 415 to 465 megawatts of power. How do you do that? You have, when we came into government, 106 megawatts of power when the country was demanding 117. That is what you were getting. Blackouts all the time. Soon as something happened, blackout all the time. 106 megawatts of energy of generating sets were operating. The rest was parked. They were old. They trip out every time. And that is what we found. We cannot hide that. That is on record. That's what we found. And the honorable member knows that. The thing he asked about how are we going to use up this, how are we going to use up this supply that we're putting in with the Amelia Falls and the gas to energy. I don't think that the opposition, Mr. Speaker, understand where Guyana is going. They don't understand where Guyana is going. Last year we grew. The year before we grew by double digits. 2022 we will literally double economic growth. That is where we are going, and you have to cater for that. You don't wait till the problem is upon you, Mr. Speaker, then also to prepare. You have to prepare now. You have to plan now. And that is what our government is doing. That, Mr. Speaker, is how the honorable member there used to manage, as my friend said, like a cake shop operation. When the problem is upon you, then you hustle, you scramble, you put things together. That is not how we do work. We have done this project in a systematic way. In a systematic way. We have discussed it. We have agreed. We have agreed on location, and I'll tell you how we have agreed on the location. I'll come to that. I'll come to that shortly. Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying here are all registered as fact. Let me just say how we have selected the site, the criteria. The length of the pipe, it drives costs. So what they did is took the location and scribe an arc to see the lowest point in which it reached the shore. And that is all. That is all they did, Mr. Speaker. But there's a whole host of other criteria you have to consider with a project of this nature. Let me go through them. The length of the pipe drives costs. The thoroughfare crossing is a criteria. The road access to the site is a criteria. The land cover suitability is a criteria. The bridge and the stream crossing is another criterion. Site topography is another one. Soil and land condition is another one. Site accessibility via water is another one, because the engines will be so heavy, the structures will be so heavy, Mr. Speaker, it cannot go through the roads, it have to go through waterways. They don't understand that, Mr. Speaker. River to navigate with large vessels, that was another criteria. Dredging requirement, that was another criteria. How do you get large ships in shallow waters? You have to dredge it. Habitat type and quality was another criteria. This is not guesswork. This is systematic evaluation. Mangrove crossing requirements was another criteria. Distance to support services, something that you all have no idea about, was another criteria. When you have a place where you're building out a massive plant, two massive plants, an LNG plant and a power plant, you know what you need to build that? Thousands of tons of sand and gravel. You need machinery. You need a whole host of things to get that done. The distance to services is key in delivery of that. And my brother, the honorable member over there, have no clue of that. So to come in this parliament and talk about site, he doesn't know site evaluation and selection. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm sorry, but he doesn't. The other criteria is the potential for physical resettlement. Physical resettlement, you want to put it at Togo where you got mass, dense population? Is that what you want to do? You have to look at flood risk. You have to look at flood risk. And lastly, the proximity to transmission, which he mentioned, and I'm going to address it here. When concurrently in building out the power plant, you have to build out the transmission network, because you have 230,000 volts emanating from it to go into the transmission system, and that will be built out concurrently, Mr. Speaker. So for him to ask questions, when he talk about a plan and a study, should have considered those things. You should have been able to tell the country through the Honorable Speaker. He should have been able to tell the country. He, the honorable member, should be able to tell the country. You don't come and ask here, Mr. Speaker, and put that question to the People's Progressive Party. We know what we're doing over here. We don't guess. That is my introductory remarks, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Patterson talk about environmental issues as if that is something close to the heart of the APNU-AFC government. Let me tell you all, every one of you are through the speaker, the People's Progressive Party is the authority on the environment, period. We are the authority on the environment. And I'll tell you this, Mr. Speaker, I had the privilege of representing Guyana at the World Petroleum Congress to speak about energy transition in a net zero position. Guyana, 13 years ago embarked on a low carbon development strategy because we have the ability to sequester and store with the forest that we have 19.5 billion tons of carbon and an annual sequestration of 154 million tons of carbon. That is our forest cover, grasslands and everything. That is what we have. We have maintained it, we've managed it, we have kept it pristine. And that is what our record is. We are not the government that cut down forests and have forestation without accountability. So I am saying to you, Mr. Speaker, it is our record through the LCDS strategy, and we have launched it and expanded to include the blue and ocean economy. And that is our record. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member spoke about something that struck me. It struck me when he spoke about when they were consulting people like banks, DIH and DDL and the forestry sector, that they tell them that they're not investing and it don't make sense. I don't know who y'all was talking, sorry Mr. Speaker, who the honorable member was talking to when they were talking to banks, DDL and the GMSA and the logging sector. I don't know, because every single private sector organization in this country has endorsed the gas to energy because it delivers cheaper power, it cuts it by half. Mr. Speaker, right now GPL produces power about 30 US cents per kilowatt. That is the highest in this hemisphere. With this gas to energy project, it's sort of 5.5 cents per kilowatt. 5.5 cents. With the Amelia project, the current estimate is 7.7 cents. It is chalk and cheese. So to say to the Guyanese people, industry and individuals, that you're not going to cut their bill in any way, shape or form, you have no plan, and we should park this in some committee for it to stay there and die a natural death, is just wrong by all standards. It is just wrong. The suggestion by the honorable member to put this in a committee is to tell the Guyanese people that we don't care about your struggles when your light bill come at the end of the month. We don't care about your struggle if your manufacturing cost is eating out your bottom line. We don't care about your struggle if you're cutting chicken and the blade that you use with the motor is eating into your profit. We don't care about those things. That is what the suggestion, the effects of the suggestion is by the honorable member. But I'll say this to you, the People's Progressive Party care about those things. That is why we're going to do this project. This project, Mr. Speaker, will deliver industrialization in Guyana, Mr. Speaker. It will deliver industrialization in Guyana. And industrialization might be a new term for my colleagues across the House, but it is something that we must do. If we do not do, we will end up a rich country on paper, but not in substance. That is not the thinking of the People's Progressive Party government. What we will do is deliver industrialization the way we know how to do it, in a phased manner. The first thing you do is cheaper energy. That is what this project is. So to you, for the honorable member to say to take it to a select committee is not just wrong, it is unpatriotic. It is anti-nationalistic. Because the competitiveness of this country and the people and their business rests with the cost of energy. Let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, I came from the private sector. I actually came from the private sector. I had a job. I had a job as an executive. I managed companies' finance for 16.5 years. One of the biggest drag on profits is energy costs. Those same generators that the honorable member talked about, the low speed and the high speed by DDL and banks and all of them, if you check it to the cost of manufacturing, the total cost, it's between 17 to 25%. It eats out the bottom line. So for any company, Mr. Speaker, to say that they don't want cheaper energy, well, I don't know who they were talking to. I really don't know who they were talking to. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member talked about transparency. Transparency. Nancy Story, come on, Gail. Transparency. He spoke about that and telling us on this side about transparency. The first thing we did when we came into government, when the Payara permit was approved, we published it on the website. The Honorable Minister Vikram Bharat published it on the website. First thing that we did, that is what we promised in our manifesto, Mr. Speaker. That is what we did. Everything we do, we disclose it to the people. Vice President Jagdeo holds his press conference and disclose it to the people. So for you to talk about transparency and saying that the people of this country, they don't want to hear it from you, Mr. They don't want to hear it from you. You talk about transparency. Thank you, Mr. Honorable Prime Minister. A little 18 million, a little in the grand scheme of our revenues, a little 18 million sign-in bonus was given. And they spent it out. They hid it and they spent it out. And then they misled the people. I don't know if you can use lie in the house, but they misled the people. They misled the people, and the Honorable Ashley said, the former finance thought it was a gift. So if you are given little and you cannot be trusted with little, why should you be trusted with more? Mr. Schuman, Honorable Member Mr. Schuman, that was on your Facebook page. If you are given little and you cannot be trusted with little, how can you be trusted with more? So the Honorable Member Patterson We account, and we account by law. The Natural Resource Fund bill has the revenue and deposits criteria in it, and every single cent that comes from the oil and gas sector, on the oil and gas sector, whether it's revenue, rents, signing bonus, discovery bonus, every single revenue have to come into the fund. And that is by law. It's not guesswork anymore. It's not nobody asking a minister if the money is received or not. So to speak about transparency to us, I actually think it's the pot is somehow telling the kettle the bottom block. Mr. Speaker, I want to raise the issue about the gas, the energy plant, and the location at Wales. The location at Wales, if anybody on the opposition side, Mr. Speaker, ever venture to Wales, they closed the sugar estate, but I don't know if they actually venture to Wales. But they need to venture to Wales, and they will understand why the location was chosen. Because you need expansion. You have a pipe that will bring in 120 million cubic feet of gas. Not just 50 million as the honorable member spoke of. That is the first phase. It can accommodate 120 million cubic feet of gas. That means that it can cater for further expansion. The honorable member does not know about subsea tieback and the ability for subsea tieback offshore, where you have one field tying to another and you can route the gas back in. He doesn't speak about that, Mr. Speaker, but that is possibility that can be done to generate more gas onshore, to expand further. So the Wales location, where it is, where it's going to go, one, it will make sure that there's area for expansion. There's not dense population around where it's going in case of any unfortunate event that lives will be in close proximity. All those things were considered. So Region 3, you ask why Region 5 or not 6? We don't have anything against Region 5 and 6. We are government for all of Guyana. But Region 3, the location was specifically chosen because of its suitability for the project and the ability to expand and make it larger. The Honorable Speaker, I want to say that the Honorable Member Patterson came here and asked a lot of questions and referred to studies. The very studies that he referred to, we have checked those studies. We have checked those studies. Do not believe we didn't read the studies over there. We read them. But they did not address the issues that we are confronted with. You're talking about a project around 900 million cap. 900 million cap for US. Imagine the benefits that will deliver to businesses, people, when you start getting cheaper electricity. It will go into a grid, honorable member. We don't sit on our idle hands. GPL is already looking at smart grid solutions. Very shortly you will see an RFP for that. So that will accommodate the gas when it's coming, the electricity when it's coming in the grid. So you might not know, we don't go around tooting our horn like some on the other side, Mr. Speaker, but we work diligently and systematically to deal with these issues. So the motion that the Honorable brought to this Honorable House today to suspend this project and put it in a select committee, Mr. Chairman, I reject that idea the fullest thought. Thank you very much.